Hello and welcome to this episode 156 of Extinctionati. And I believe we have our first.
Hello.
Are you there? Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
That is very good news.
No. I mean, I am a bit late. Uh, just
But it's no problem. I was the late person. Everything took 10 minutes extra today. So how has India been this week?
it is absolutely brutal. During the month, I've been here from January 23rd, and suddenly towards middle end of February, the heat started picking up, and in April it was absolutely 18 days above 40, and the highest being 45.3. And with humidity levels around 70%, plus minus 10 and all. So the feels like has gone up to a maximum of 52, 53.
Oh my God! Oh my dear! Yeah, we had yesterday we had snow, so I put a picture of snow on my Facebook and stuff, right? So
Uh,
we
we
have
are at,
some green grass and some green bushes, just trying to come out for the spring season. But
uh,
then we get a ton of snow on 1st of June. Yeah. I think I've figured that my personal hot bulb temperature is about 15 degrees Celsius. That's sort of what I can take. So
that's the highest you've experienced.
now it's the highest I can endure. I think for a longer period of time.
16,
15, yeah.
15.
Maybe up to 20, but for short periods. Then I can find some
I
channel.
just can't imagine.
Yeah.
I have spent winter in Chicago. It has gone down to minus 15 centigrade.
Okay. Yeah.
Feels like minus 25 and all.
Mm.
And but in India, where I stay, only in my childhood, when I was in Kolkata, the temperatures used to go down to 7 degrees centigrade in winter.
Yeah.
But nowadays, rarely, in Bangalore, it goes below 14.
Hmm. Wow. So, has there been sort of any very big events connected to the heat in
Yeah.
India?
A lot of people are dying through heat
Yeah.
waves.
Mm.
Actually, it's not really recorded in a proper way. But I think
No.
of late last 2, 3 days, some channels are bringing out, state-wise reports.
Mm. Because I think 2 or 3 years ago, when there was this big climate meeting in the UK in Glasgow, right?
Yeah.
Then this British TV station called Sky News, they would have a daily show. It was called the Daily Climate Show, right? and they
Uh-huh.
would try to produce one episode of 15, 30
Acha,
minutes.
as we are speaking, after I think for
Yeah.
no, 40, 50 days of heat, right now it's raining. Started
Oh,
raining.
lovely. That is colder, isn't it, when it rains?
It will reduce the heat somewhat,
Yeah, lovely,
but
and clean
not
the air.
much.
Mm. No, so they were trying to get this live daily climate show going, and they did for many months. But it is, as soon as something happened, that is almost always the case. As soon as something happens, like a COVID epidemic or a new war in the Middle East or something, then equally uh,
But
climate.
nowadays, every day something is happening or the other.
Yeah, but they just dropped the entire program, like
Yeah.
as if climate was solved because there was a new war against some kind of adversary, and so it's just like it kind of shows that it's just a narrative, right? The climate is only needed as a story or a narrative when there's nothing else big going on, from the perspective of the media and the politicians. I think seems it seems very artificial, when they want to emphasize climate or not. So we have two
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
P.
It got
Yeah.
disconnected.
Okay, okay, that's okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's after quite a few days, it's raining hard.
Mm, lovely.
But I mean, I don't know. Like, the highest you are saying is 16 to 20 for us. I think. I mean, our endurance is up to 45,
Yeah. Okay. Uh,
and there are
I, ca-
places in India which are 50 also.
I can't imagine living in a place where you can only go down to 45. Let's say you live in a 50 degrees area, and the only thing you can hope for is to get on the bus, very hot bus, to some place where it's 45. Oh my
No,
God.
I think what has happened. This extreme high temperatures have one of the years. This concrete. The cities have too much concrete, and
Mm,
so it's all radiating. 2, 3 degrees. It's becoming higher. As it is,
mm,
there is global warming, but this concretization is making it worse.
mhm,
Unplanned concretization, like.
mm. I think something happened to your camera because we can only see.
I'm sorry, I was talking to you like a phone. Like, I know, like
Huh?
I get confused at times.
Mm,
I think I'm slowly like developing dementia, kind of.
mhm. I would too. I would definitely develop dementia if I had to live in that
Yeah,
area.
no, I tend to forget quite a bit,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
in many ways, I'm quite dysfunctional also.
Okay. Yeah, that's not
And
good.
anyway, like I think because of my age, like I'm
Mm.
72 plus.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think you are less than 60.
Sorry.
You are you? I mean, 60 or something?
I'm 53. Thank you very
Huh?
much. Yeah, 53. Yeah.
63, 63. You are 10
50,
years
50,
younger. 10 years younger than.
50, 53. I'm
Uh,
just a youth compared to you. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
because of the rain, it's difficult to hear.
yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Can you
Um,
hear the storm?
no, I think it's sort of you know removed by technology or something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Background noise. Yeah. Do you have anything on your mind this week?
Uh, no, it's just like I think slowly, like we should have the census. Like we should start tracking the excess deaths due to heat. I think. I think the excess death here should be like, I mean, implemented all over the world. I mean, because there are so many things happening simultaneously. Like
Yeah.
in many countries, COVID is still going on.
Mm. Yeah, I hear about floodings in Germany and the usual
It's
when the
in
snow
Germany. Also, COVID
yeah
is there.
when the snow melts in the Alps in the
Uh,
Alpine region, you get these floodings almost every year, at least in the later decades. Yeah. So tiny villages from the Middle Ages that are just swept away by floodwater. You know, cars floating everywhere. Right.
just walk around a bit and check the storm.
Okay. Yeah.
And just
So do you get thunder and lightning as well?
lightning. Hello, Pabba.
Mm.
Yes. No, generally, like we listen to news or Netflix. I watch YouTube a lot of YouTube.
Mm.
It's a very open kind of year where you can, whatever is your taste, and here you can get those videos and what.
Mm.
So, I mean, do people in Greenland feel lonely?
Oh, it's fantastic. Just open the window and you have the best climate cooling system in the world for free. Yeah, fantastic.
So, people are so sort of, I mean, close to nature and that a kind of ecstasy. They don't have the need to feel lonely.
Lonely? I don't know about that. I can only speak for myself, and I got so much
Yeah.
stuff to do that I don't have time for being lonely.
No, that's
So,
good actually. Actually,
yeah.
I'm extremely lazy. Like,
Hmm. Yeah, I'm writing, so it's like I have all of these characters that I write about. So that's kind of the people in quotes that I think about. What are they gonna do? What are
so
they gonna say?
is this your first book or you have written other books?
Second book, yeah, second book,
This is your second book,
yeah.
and the first book is published. It is in which language?
Norwegian and Spanish. I got it translated to Spanish, but it's first
So,
edition is Norwegian.
but you write it in which language?
The new one, the one I'm working on now, is written in English, but the first one was in Norwegian.
So, I mean, you generally write in English, right?
Yeah, now I do that because I realize that my only audience is global or English, right?
And then you got translated into Spanish to print it.
Yeah, I published the Norwegian one first, of course, and then 2 years later, it was translated to Spanish.
Acha, acha.
Yeah.
Acha, acha. I'll just tell, I think there's some lightning around. I'll tell
Yeah.
my wife to put off the TV.
Okay. Maybe I can continue with the intro video, and then you can come back. Is that good for you?
No, no, I'm just here. In off
Okay.
kodle haba, lightning out.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
But
So sometimes, in this very harsh lightning, some electrical appliances they go off.
yeah,
So you all have a lot of lightning in Greenland.
I asked about that when I moved here, and they said that it sometimes is thunder in Greenland, but I've never seen it. It's like in 7 years, never seen lightning once. Okay. It's kind of too cold.
I don't know. The YouTube suddenly opened by itself.
Yeah, I can hear the storm now.
Yeah. Have you heard a channel called Full Spectrum Survival?
No, not yet. Tell me about it.
Actually, there's a very nice uh, channel called Full Spectrum Survival.
Yeah.
It's a very good recap of global news
Okay. Okay.
and on survival and all, like, because now the way things are happening everywhere. So, will you send me a link about your first book so I can just check it out?
Yeah, I can do that. I can send that on the Facebook
So,
chat.
is it also there in English?
No, it's only
Oh,
Spanish and
oh,
Norwegian.
only Spanish, only Spanish. That's what.
Yeah. So it's not for everyone, but it's only
Uh-huh.
it's only the first novel, and I don't regard that as so interesting to
Uh-huh.
everybody. It's more like it's interesting for us who lived in Norway 10 years ago during the terror,
Uh-huh.
and maybe not so much. The rest of the planet has already seen that kind of uh, machinations going on in their own
Uh-huh.
countries, right? So Norway is kind of just a new chapter in the sorry saga of terrorism. So
1 second.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm back.
yeah.
Yeah. That was just my cousin calling me.
You told me that you've written things for 10 or 20 years, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been writing for about, most of my stuff I've written between 2010 and 20. And
Yeah.
after that, I feel there's really nothing much else left to write. But sometimes I feel I should write because of this imminent, heat wave in India. The way I see it, I'm telling you, like next year, the temperatures will be at least 2 degrees more, and following year there will be no food. And in fact, I thought today I saw some statistics somewhere globally. Half the like arable land is now drought, and it's not able to. Uh, you can't plant food,
Mm,
and so in a couple of years there will be food shortages and riots. Absolutely.
yeah. So, what is the best place to start reading your stuff? What's it called?
I mean, survival.
Is that the title of your
No, no,
blog?
mine is a series of blogs I have written from
Yeah.
2010. So my series of blogs are basically centered around, let's put it like a model, interdependent model, which is a triangle. So
Mm.
one end is economics, one end is societies, also social, yeah, and the other end is climate. So
Yeah.
they're all interdependent, societies, economies, and climate. And because of capitalism and all this greed and avarice and fossil fuels and everything, everything is tumbling now. And it's all collapsing for the last 20 years or so. And now we can see the collapse very clearly, like so many banks failing in the US, and they're saying there are another 100 banks who are about to fail. And then I mean the kind of protests which are going all over US, and then undocumented citizens, people have become citizens without documents. I mean, it's a very scary scenario, and this war with Ukraine and Russia and Israel and Gaza and everything is sort of, like compounding.
So, what can people search for if they want to find your blog on that?
I'll send you my blog. My blog is basically some a series of rantings, and then about all these, how human beings have screwed it up and this and that, and then I've written a bit about various things. I mean, including heat action plan and all. 2017, I wrote a year
What
on heat
but
action plan.
what is the name of the blog if you
Oh,
search?
acha, acha. I will write it and send it to you. It is basically it's called New Grammar of Life. One
Okay.
word. New Grammar of Life, all small case. Dot
Okay.
blogspot.com.
Okay. Okay. New glamour of life. Right.
Blogspot.com.
Yeah. Right.
Then you should be able to get it.
Uh-huh. Let me see. Dot Blogspot. I used to be on Blogspot.
I really
That
haven't
it.
written much. This is my only bit. I thought, I could write whatever was there in my mind. And I used to feel
Mm.
very seriously about these things in the, second half of the 2000s. And then my daughter told me once in 2010 that why don't you write a blog instead of talking and all that. So I,
That was a very smart daughter. Yeah.
so I wrote
uh,
about it.
it may be censored because I don't. Do you spell glamour with a U?
No, no, GRAMMER, double M, GRAMMER, grammar, OF,
Oh, grammar.
uh,
Sorry, I misheard you. It must be distorted.
NEW,
Yeah. Right.
GRAMMEROFLIFE dot blogspot
Right.
dot.
New grammar of living. It says on the.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's the other name for it.
Ah, excellent.
So there are about 100 blogs in it.
Mm,
Generally,
I
it's
will share it.
mostly rantings, about my. It's a series of rants. I can't write much for
Yeah,
nuts, but I just love ranting around.
I shared it to the YouTube chat now. Uh,
Because I mean,
so
what's happening today and all, I have written all about this so long back. And then in Odisha, I feel these Malika sadhus, they have, this. I told you now about this five saints 600 years ago wrote all this, predicted all this. Falling values, wars, economic
Hmm.
decline and moral values, and then uh, climate and everything. They have written 600 years back. So
Hmm.
now it's all coming true. So I like staying here, and this is the language which is my mother tongue, like but I can't read in my mother tongue. That's my problem, because I was brought up in colonial schools, and they never taught us
Okay.
because it was in a different state. I had to learn Bengali, Hindi, and
Okay.
English. So
Yeah.
English was mainly like we used to do everything in English, but as Indian
Yeah.
languages, we learned Hindi and Bengali because it was in West Bengal state. If I had studied in Odisha state, I would have learned Odia, Hindi, and English. So that's
Hmm.
the sad
Yeah.
thing in my life.
Hmm.
Do you know
Yeah.
your mother tongue?
Yeah. I do speak my mother tongue, and I'm trying to speak Danish. Up here, and
So in your mother tongue, you can read and write.
I can, but it's kind of no use. It's no use writing anyway in any language. But writing in Norwegian is almost like yeah, it's hard to explain it because it's so very few people. It's like only one part of your big city, your
Mhm.
biggest city. It's the entire population of Norway, and most of those people, of course, will not even vaguely interested in whatever I have to say. At any point. So um, yeah, so you kind of have to open the window to the rest of the world if you
Yeah,
have
yeah, yeah, yeah.
any kind of
So then
special.
it has to be in English.
Absolutely. I would prefer it to be in Chinese as well, but maybe AI translators can do that for me because
Yes,
it's
yes, yes.
way too late for me to learn Chinese. But
But how did you translate it from English to Spanish by Google Translate?
no, I had actually a fan, a reader who read my book,
Ah,
in Norway in Norwegian,
and he
and
knows
uh,
Spanish.
and we decided to meet and have a beer at one of the pubs that I mentioned in my
Ah,
novel, and then we kind of hit the right tone and asked what he was doing, and he said he was a Spanish teacher. So okay, yeah.
ah,
I've been looking because I've been all over the University of Bergen looking
yeah.
for somebody who speaks Spanish
Ah.
or who has Spanish as a subject at the university, and I
So
was up there.
why did you choose for your first printing Spanish over English?
I kind of thought about Spanish being the main language in most countries.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. I
In
mean,
most
English is
countries.
only in these five eyes, like Canada, US, England, and Australia, and
Yeah,
New Zealand. Whereas
yeah,
Spanish is spoken in Europe, it is spoken in so many South American countries,
yeah.
and
Even in
even in America, it is second biggest language.
exactly, even in the USA, it's a massive language minority. Yeah.
Yes,
So, but it's like, did I choose Spanish or did I choose not English? It's kind of
yes, yes, yes.
So it's a bit harder for people to access it, of course,
Uh-huh.
for the Anglosphere. But maybe my real first novel, my real debut novel, will be the one I'm writing on right now, right? Because the first book was more like just getting through it and learning how to do it, and also writing about the stuff that I needed to write about. But the second, much bigger book is more sort of reflected from the time we live in. and not so much about just dealing with some crap that happened in your own city, like the first book.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of, like from my teens also. Like we have these old Vedic writers. They are as
Yeah.
old as 14,000 years old and all.
Mm.
So then some of their writings have been rephrased and reparaphrased and again re-energized by a saint in the 8th century called Sankaracharya.
Yeah.
So, and he gave his comments on the Upanishads and all that. And so I have read a lot of Sankaracharya from the age of 20. And now again, I have got back to Sankaracharya. And there's a YouTube channel which also believes in Sankaracharya, believes in non dualism, like non dualism as a philosophical practice, like a spiritual practice, I mean, like where, like you are just an appearance. We are all appearances. I mean, we are not real because we are just so temporal and everything is, uh, I find everything very meaningless everywhere. I used to find everything very meaningless from my 20s
Well.
because everything looks so unreal, like I'll send you four of my. I have four, axioms in life, which I wrote in my early 20s. One is called "Nothing is real, nothing really matters, uh, nothing is absolute, everything is relative." These
Mm.
are the four axioms. So have seen it can be applied on anything in life,
Yeah.
like. Because actually, like, we tend to think that what we see is real, but it is
Mm.
just another appearance because we are not real ourselves. And like unreal year watching another unreal year, so it's like a labyrinth or a year mirrors, continuous
Mm.
mirrors, in just reflecting the same unrealness.
Hollow mirrors. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
parallel mirrors.
it reminds me, 4 years ago during the COVID, me and my mother, we were crossing the mountains in Norway to the fjord region for some festivities.
Uh-huh.
And are you there? And I observed, from the car window, and my thought was that even the fjords and the giant slopes or steep mountains. There's an echo. Can you turn off your volume?
No, no, no. I'm just trying to get my
Yeah,
earphones. It's in my
yeah, but
bedroom.
I was just hearing myself. So thank you. Yeah, so even the tall mountains and the steep. Oh my God!
Uh,
You gotta turn off the YouTube audio or whatever.
I just crossed over the hall and went to my bedroom to get the earphones so that I can hear it on the earphones. It'll
Mm.
be clearer.
I've heard in the last 24-hour period.
Well, to make to make a long story short, even the mountains and the fjords are kind of not real because they are just there because of coincidences. Sometimes you see large mountains and deep fjords and beautiful kind of landscapes, But I
Hello.
don't think I don't
Hello.
think many people realize
Hello.
that. Hello,
Hello.
hello.
No, this earphone doesn't seem to be working. I'm sorry.
Well, that sounds like last week. Now it was my earphones that didn't work, so I guess that is a theme.
Austin, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you, but you can't hear me,
Is
I think.
anybody out there?
I put in the chat that I can hear you.
Acha, you can hear me?
Yeah, I do. So maybe this is where we draw the line, and then we can congregate next week. Deep state, yeah, maybe. Okay, I think we will just say hi and or bye in English, and wave to each other, and then meet up in another week. Is that okay?
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Pradeep. Take care.
Next week, there may not be. It's a 9th next week, and it is French Open finals. Plus, that
Oh my
day is
God.
my nephew's birthday, and
Okay.
I'll be probably in Bangalore. So
Mm,
it's a difficult day next Sunday, but we'll do
yeah,
it the Sunday after.
that's good. Thank you. See you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, so today's May 22, 2022, and today we're going to have our, I believe it's 110th Desiderata Extinctionati meeting. And we actually have a prepared statement from Going South. Actually, today it's Uncle Ted's birthday, and he has do you have some words Going South?
Yeah, sure. It's Ted Kaczynski, or the Unabomber. His 80th birthday today. Just found out yesterday, I think, Sophie. So I've just written down some notes here. So basically, I think I can speak for all of us here when I say we condemn the bombs sent by Ted. They are a sad fact, and yet this intro is about his thinking and him as a cultural phenomenon. So, to the timing of Ted as a phenomenon in the, I think, 1970s, 80s, and 1990s. But most of us only heard about him in the 90s. So growing up with Ted becoming a sort of celebrity, as I personally started my IT career in the 1990s, this obviously was a very bad match. Not only was I against any sort of violent crimes like that, I was also a pioneer surfing the internet wave. I can see clearer now in retrospect, but Ted's aversion to tech also reminded me of our Nobel Literature Prize winning author Hamsun, who for some reason didn't like the telegraph. Although tech was fine, he just happened to draw his line in the sand at the telegraph. It seemed arbitrary to me, and to tie it back to Ted and to my previous piece on Reddit, the question of whether Ted was right or not boils down to when we think humans hit our tipping point, triggering with necessity all the climate tipping points and all the rest of it. So to cut a long story short, going berserk and attacking computer shops would seem both strange and irrelevant if humans had already passed our tipping point when choosing an agrarian line of work 10,000 years ago. So at this time, I'd already spent hours and hours defending tech in our Deep Green University Ecology Club conversations. My argument would basically be that not all tech is created equal. There are commercial jets and there's email for a start. These are two very different things when it comes to resource use. Just imagine if all of us had to travel to Ireland every week to chat on a Sunday.
All right, yeah, thank you for that. So we can get started with our agenda, and Sophie actually set up something regarding health and medicine. But before we go into that, if anyone has any pressing questions, we'd like to address those. But if not, Sophie, you have the floor.
Well, this ties in what you've been saying, the anti-tech aspect of TED ties in a bit to what I was thinking of, because when does tech start? Is making a fire tech, is making a pot out of clay tech, is, you know, shaping a bone to be able to scrape a skin of an animal tech. That's extremely debatable. The concept of tech. John Zerzan also goes along those lines, and all the anarcho-primitivists. The man that I cited on the post in Reddit, Ivan Illich, was also an early voice of the a certain amount of anti-tech in what his approach to the analysis of civilization and its doom, because he was a doomer already, and anti-tech in medicine too. Another man called Jacques Ellul, who is a French man who inspired Uncle Ted, was also analyzing the dangers and the ills of technology. So I agree with you about the email and the commercial flights. I do. It's a debate that would go on forever, because we where we are now, whether it's an addiction, or whether it's a necessity, or whether we could live without it, is entirely debatable. But we probably won't have a choice anyway. Being that where we're going, most of these things are going to disappear. So I don't know. If anybody wants to say something on tech, to follow a little bit what Torstein was saying.
Yeah, I remember I was thinking, because in my 20s, in the 1990s, I was thinking, because as a environmental activist, I was I liked trains very much. I liked travel on the train. I liked the slowly getting to my destination and stuff. And I never took a driver's license. So but then I of course got self-critical, critical of my own positions. And then I started thinking, yeah, but trains, it would never stop there anyway. Even if we went back to the 1800s, to the trains, to the heyday of the trains, it would just go on. You'd have the nuclear trains, and eventually you would have cars anyway, because that's just how the economy works. So it's like, where do you draw the line, basically? I think we can never sort of go back to the Shire, to use the Lord of the Rings metaphor, right? It's if we were to go back to before the Shire, or to the Shire, it would have to be to go back to hunter-gatherers, before we started dividing the land between humans and other creatures, because agriculture is like a very psychopathic practice, where you define the best parts of the land as for humans only, and just for that kind of crop or that type of animal to graze for the sake of humans. So yeah, so basically, where do you draw the line? And I would like to follow up with my part 2 of the intro, if that's okay. Yeah. So this is also about the timing of when in our history that Ted Kaczynski appeared, the Unabomber. So if you read Ted's manifesto, he actually... Well, there's not even time to have a revolution now, for a start. And technological civilization will collapse all by itself, with a little help from our Mother Earth, leaving us more or less to write poems and rap about it. We have at our disposal a mighty ally called Mother Earth, who seems dead set on collapsing global industrial society. For the purpose of self-preservation, the spiritual person would say. But in any case, we are not the weak party in this fight. Both our planet and our normie friends are working towards the same goal: collapse, without us even lifting a finger, let alone building a bomb. So in summary, Ted was right in criticizing the de facto death cult that is industrial civilization. He was wrong to kill individuals in order to promote his essay. And if he was 30 years today, he'd probably agree with us that there's not much we can do 80 years after the point of no return, at least the way I understand the climate science. Thank you.
That's great. All right. So, anything to add from anyone else? If not, Sophie, you have the floor again if you'd like to get started.
Yeah, but I'd like to stay a little bit on what Torstein is saying, because
All right.
it's very important to realize that we don't need to do anything at the moment, except maybe for our mental health. Sometimes, you know, accomplish stealth actions to protect, like we said in a previous meeting, to protect some part of the environment that is dear to us, or something that is immediately threatened by civilization. But it's true, not much is needed at this stage. I can understand why Ted was so frustrated in the 90s, where the signs were not so obvious maybe for him, especially when he had lived as a hermit for nearly 20 years in his cabin. So he was really cut off from what was happening in the rest of the world. And I'm not justifying his actions at all, but I'm saying that he wanted his manifesto to be read, and he used the wrong method, because nobody would have read the manifesto anyway if he hadn't done that. But yeah, he didn't have the grasp of the tipping point we have reached now. He probably didn't have the climate science either at his disposal. I'd say also that the internet hadn't developed as it has now, so evidently, yeah, he couldn't be in an attitude of near acceptance, waiting for the normies to perpetuate the the fall and the collapse. So yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. It's still a fantastic manifesto that he has written, and I still think that it has a lot in it, especially when it analyzes the responsibility of the left. I think there's a really big chunk of the manifesto about that, and I think Hugh was very much on that line of thought. Also, he is a mathematical mind, and he has really explored very logically all the little corners of our civilization, and his manifesto is still a good read. I think it's still a good thing that we have it, and I still dip into it. There's not just a manifesto. There's been other writings that he published later on when he was in jail, and I've read them. I think that they also got a lot in them. I don't know if anybody else wants to say something about this.
Yeah, I totally love his Ship of Fools, which is one of those other stories that he wrote alongside the manifesto, and that's, I guess, where he goes very much in battle with the leftism or leftists. It's basically a story about this ship going towards the North Pole, or going, up into the Arctic, and the North is here, or sort of symbolizing the certain death, because it's going, up into the cold, and there's icebergs, and everybody will die basically by going north. And on that ship, you have a crew that is sort of the evil ones, sort of the leaders of civilization or capitalism or something. And you have the deck, some kind of guy on the deck who's cleaning the deck. He's sort of the eye person, or the the protagonist, and he's saying that oh, we have to stop going north because everybody will die, and this is a ship of fools, and we're all gonna die if we don't turn this ship around. And then everybody else says, yeah, we should certainly stop the ship going north, but look, we have other issues, like people are I'm black and people are calling me names because I'm black, and there is a homosexual guy who says that why should I have names said to me just because I suck cock, and all that kind of stuff. So everybody wants their own specific situation to be better before they can collectively sort of work towards turning the ship around. And that's something you also find in his manifesto, in Industrial Society and Its Future, or whatever it's called. I kind of forgot the title of the manifesto, but anyway. The problem of having all these kinds of smaller fights or battles on the left, and people kind of defining themselves from those battles, and yeah, so basically being egotistic about your own kind of sort of group, or your group struggle or something. Yeah. So I have to admit that just as Ted broke into global celebrity, I was at the worst possible position to embrace his thinking, because I was sort of surfing the wave and introducing the internet to our society in Norway. I was kind of completely in the pioneer thing about that. So to listen to an old guy who was anti-tech, that was just not me at the time. Absolutely. But cultural criticism, we've had that on and on for the past 200 years, I think. And to return to my favorite philosopher, Sapfe, he was sort of he was against human culture on a much more basic level. He could see where it took us, and I think specifically where it took the mountain regions, which he loved the most, with all kinds of metal and buildings and hotels and everything, scattered around the mountains, and just turning the beautiful nature into some kind of touristic hell. So he didn't even have to go to technology. He was just
killed all the megafauna, and that was it. And then they had to create agriculture. Well, that can be immensely debated, and we can talk about that forever, because nobody was ever there, and we never know exactly what happened. But But I'm very interested in a deep instinct, the things that keep us alive as an individual and as a group, and these people that you mention, like that, for Ted or any anti-tech people that we know, what is inspiring them? You see, is it something that they pick up because those people spend a lot of time in nature, either in mountains or in forests and stuff, and they deeply feel things that we cannot translate in words, that make us extremely aware that if we increase the amount of humans that we can reach, we are going to go down an impossible way. it's debatable. I mean, who am I to? I mean, I've been like you. I've worked in a very highly technological world, and I mean in medicine and stuff. But on the other hand, if I listened deeply to my body and to what my instinct was telling me, I knew from a very young age that things were wrong, and I couldn't put my finger on it. But when it comes back to the conversation we've been having for 2 or 3 years and the readings I've had and all the things that we've learned from you, I think that at the back of it, there's an intelligence in these people that is basic, that is for survival of our species. And survival means that we know when to procreate, we know what food to eat, we know when to sleep, and we probably know how many people we should interact with so that we don't get in danger for our health and in danger for our psychology. Anybody wants to say something about this?
Yeah, I think you can easily get to that point just by living in nature and walking the mountains, climbing the mountains, and just seeing more and more people encouraging on the areas, more and more machines and cars and hotels to make a dollar from the wild nature. So it's kind of, you don't have to study in Paris or something to get to this this insight that if this just goes on in a straight line, even it would just destroy everything, you know. So that's anyway. That's just based on the 1930s writings of Zapfe. You know, when he was actually allowed to write for the Norwegian Tourist Association, which is sort of the mountain walker association in Norway. So they actually printed his anti-tourism essays in their yearbooks, which was great to find in my grandparents' bookshelf on our cabin. Yeah, that's the cabin that I first visited in 1971, the same year that Ted Kaczynski and his brother built his cabin in the woods. So yeah, and it's sort of the same color cabin and everything. So I kind of I kind of feel that I have a sort of parallel life to Ted Kaczynski. Mostly because in the 1990s I was also trying to find something to do, some way to solve this big problem, and you know, if I wasn't this successful in the IT business, I would probably have gone down a much different path, I guess.
Oh, Sophie, you mentioned how certain people know, and just, for me recently, just listening, I've been listening more to Deep Green Resistance, like R.I.P, Derek Jensen, and I'm sure other writers. Maybe I haven't read a lot into Uncle Ted, but I've listened to some of his works, and you can tell the way they talk about. Well, I'll speak more of Derek Jensen about how they feel about nature. That how I perceive them, they have a deep sensitivity, deep love for nature. That and I'd say Derek does a good job of putting it into words, into the language of the alien cortex, right? Because this stuff, nature, the people who live in nature, I don't see them speaking about it, in the alien cortex language. And so a lot of them speak from the heart. And that's the difference between those who, I'd say they know versus the people in cities and the alien cortex. The way they speak is more about, oh, how can humans get more? How can we become efficient? How do we get money? And how do we grow? How do we get unlimited growth? And to tie it all back, I listened to there was Hugh had an interview with Max Wilbert, and he was kind of going into that same thing about the heart versus the mind, the heart versus what's the alien cortex. So the heart, that's deep green people like Max, like Derek, who believe in what's going on, what they see, what's going out in nature, the destruction. But that's totally different from what companies, government, states care about. They don't see nature in the same way. They see it as dollars. I think in that interview he was talking about the language of the alien cortex is what? Dollars, numbers, and weapons. And so that's totally different from what the heart and what people who live in nature are about, right? We don't see that as an important thing. Dollars, that's an afterthought. That's total alien cortex. And so there's that conflict that's happening now. That's been happening since, I'd say, maybe if we go back to agriculture, since weaponry was established, since the alien cortex set its kind of foothold in humanity. There's always been that fight, and we're seeing the end kind of now, right? The outcome, the conclusion is collapse, because people have said it many times before. I mean, I'd say Derek is kind of this new generation, but there's been they've tried to tell us years ago that, hey, don't take this technology thing too far, or else we're all gonna go down. So it's a tough situation. I mean, we're kind of at that last. I know we're part of that last generation now. It's kind of a Hail Mary pass. What can we do? I mean, it's hard to say. And yeah. Yeah, and then Going South says, how can we turn this waterfall into dollar bills? And he referred to J.R.R. Tolkien. Yeah, totally different languages between alien cortex and nature. And I'm glad Hugh actually, he was one of the first, like, when he mentioned alien cortex and the different ways of thinking, it opened my mind, because I would say I was in that same boat of being a technologist at one point and saying, oh yeah, the only way, even at some point when I knew about climate change, I was in the boat of the the bright green lies and solar panels, and I'm sure some of us were in that camp at one point until we realized its true nature.
Yeah, what you said now, Mike, kind of made me almost understand the alien. And then I would constantly get the question, yeah, so how are you gonna monetize this? How are you going to be a millionaire based on this poetry website? And I was just like, what? What are you even talking about? Come on, this is a poetry site. I'm not gonna make a buck from poetry. Are you stupid? So.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think the alien cortex way of thinking it's not just that. It goes beyond. I think it participates too with this ego trip that they were having on the ship of fools that you were describing. It's this inflation of the ego combined and a consequence of our civilization. So, or I mean, a cause of our civilization. So it's an enormous amount of things. It took me a long time to get the concept of alien cortex to myself, except that I got some insights. For example, I was listening recently, and I think I posted something like that about that on Reddit, to the first conversation. I think it's the first conversation that you had with George. So I was listening to it before I invited him to have a conversation with us, and in some place in the conversation, I think around 30 minutes to about 40 minutes, there's 10 minutes where Hugh explains very well his concept to George, who hasn't a clue of what he's talking about when he's talking about alien cortex. So there's different ways of coming to that, you know, and there's different words. Hugh says himself that he prefers to use that instead of intellect, instead of mind, instead of there's all sorts of synonyms that you can put on the word alien cortex. It's a very there's a lot of terms, and I think he used that as a kind of his mark, more or less, you know, because nobody had ever used that term, and because it's alien to our species, Homo monkeys, so it's something that came that suddenly was alien. But that's really the name. But I think there's plenty of ways to approach this concept. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we should make kind of a connection over to health, because I'm pretty sure that if Ted Kaczynski was free and active today, he would have something to say about the monkeypox and the corona panic and the forced vaccinations. You know, it's very anti-freedom, I think, and I was personally quite shocked this February and March when the Canadian government, you know, totally at the end of the whole pandemic, they wanted to really hard force everybody in Canada to take the vaccine, and really put people out of deciding for their own body, basically. I'm pretty sure that Ted would hate that completely.
That's for sure. But you know, another link with health is that if a thing like, when Hugh said that several times in meetings when we started to talk about the quarantine and everything. When epidemics used to happen a long time ago, first you didn't hear about them because you didn't have the news and you didn't have internet. And second, you had this kind of, we didn't have the transports. The plague at the 14th century killed an enormous chunk of Europe, but that was during a time of big pilgrimages and wars and crusades and starting of trade. Every time there's been epidemics of a size, it was happening at a time where there was massive groups of humans, where cities were starting to develop, and there was either wars or big events. But I think, like the Spanish flu, for example, that hit Europe after World War I, killed a lot of people. It was a horrible thing, but you didn't get this you didn't see the powers that be use it to implement certain agendas that they are as they're doing now. You see, so now the narrative is totally changed. I'm a bit confused. I don't know where to go. But do you follow what I'm saying? We're in a, you see, people, health has, and then I'm going to come back to health. I think I want to read you an introduction to what I was thinking, because it's a conclusion of a book that I really like, that I've read when I was young, when I was turning to medicine, and I discovered this guy by chance, and it completely blew my mind, because he was questioning everything, and he was putting he was filling all my doubts with his profound common sense. So what he says there, if you mind, it won't be long. A world of optimal and widespread health is obviously a world of minimal and only occasional medical intervention. Healthy people are those who live in healthy homes, on a healthy diet, in an environment equally fit for birth, growth, work, healing, and dying. They are sustained by a culture that enhances the conscious acceptance of limits to population, of aging, of incomplete recovery, and ever imminent death. Healthy people need minimal bureaucratic interference to mate, give birth, share the human condition, and die. Now, that says a lot of things. There's a phrase after that says the true miracle of modern medicine is diabolical. And that's where I'm coming. You see, why did this COVID crisis have such an impact on society? Because people's notion of health, concept of health, is completely perverted, and has been perverted over the last 50 to 60 years, if not 100. And it is on a population like that that you can implement fear, control, and all these abominations that have happened during the COVID crisis. A thing like that would have never happened if people still had, I was going to say, a healthy concept of health. Would you like to add to this?
Yeah, I'll just add that, yeah, what you just read is something that's very foreign to the people in like alien cortex land, because I think I even spoke with Hugh a couple of times, and he kind of helped me see things a little differently in regards to the health system, because at some point I believed I believed in the health system, and I was one of the folks who wanted, we need insurance, because medical insurance, because that's the only way to get medical help. And that's a form of, slavery, right? When you're forced to get some sort of insurance, especially in the US, just to get medical care, and you're left in that position, and you're, in actuality, there's other ways of medicine. They're just called quack medicine. They're given labels that say, oh no, don't go to these fakes, don't, because I mean, maybe, they could be, who knows, right? And but the point is it should be given up to people, the community, the individual, to make that decision, not this medical establishment that believes in, or that says, oh, you must follow us and you must go only to these doctors in these reputable places, and everyone else cannot go. And that's a form of control that at one point I thought it was normal, but it actually is not. And to give labels, it really puts fear.
And rationality has given names to diseases. It's very, very recent. People used to talk about having a discomfort or this or that. There's a certain form of systemic thinking, or not systemic thinking, rational thinking, that permeated the evolution of medicine and started to classify, to put numbers, to measure, to classify, to put labels. And that's when diseases were invented. Mostly, I think disease is an invention. I profoundly think that we are in a kind of a prison system in medicine where we have created, like Hugh used to talk about the DSM in psychology or psychiatry. You know, we've put numbers and this, and your ABC form, this of that. It's the same. The Greeks had described, and Hippocrates had described certain forms of ailments of the humans in beautiful words, actually, but it didn't come to this mountain of classification that we have now. You have completely imprisoned the human into a system of diseases that doesn't exist really. But we are in that. So everybody reacts like that. We grow up like that. Our parents, the school, the system, the hospitals label you with this, and you're a prisoner of that. And automatically you're going to be distressed because you're being told that you have this. So you're going to turn to this medicine. You're going to turn even to herbs or whatever, but you're still going from a way of thinking that is wrong. It isn't. This is only a recent thing. We are totally trapped in this, and I don't know how. I'm really not very good at explaining things, but I hope that you would tell me if you want me to clarify what I'm saying, because I understand what I'm saying, but I'm probably not getting it across as well as I'd like, and I probably will be repeating myself on this. But do you grasp what I'm trying to say?
No, I think you're good. I think you explained it perfectly well. I understand what you're saying anyway. So yeah.
Sophie, if you can clarify, do you mean that what I'm thinking about, like the word disease is dis-ease, discomfort, and that's kind of what came to my mind when you talked about the concept of disease. And it seems like right now there's like, because people like convenience and worship technology, it's almost as if we look at doctors as doing, in a way, magic, like take this one pill and you'll be fine, or let's operate on you and it'll solve your problem. So it's as if it's focused on just one part rather than looking at the whole system of the body. Is that what you're trying to kind of share with us? Because I just think that like I've been following, of course, on the internet, and somebody uses the word like our body is like a terrain. So if we are not healthy or healthful or living a healthful life, then of course we will succumb more easily to to whatever's out there. But I don't think it's a combination of just, or it's just one thing, like take this pill and you'll be well. It's almost like it's like the soil. We have to tend to it well by eating right, exercising, getting enough rest, avoiding stress. So I don't know, that's what I'm getting from you, is that classification of this is one thing that's wrong with you, and if you do this, take this pill, you'll be fine.
Yeah, to a certain extent, you're saying what I'm. Yeah, but you see, that's why we have to come back to, and it's debatable, and we like to discuss this. It's the principle. What is health? Health for me is adaptation. It's how it's a balance, like in animals. It's the result of certain inner resources of your daily life, of your diet, of your sexual activity. It's not something that can be defined by measurements and classifications. And if we start to look at health from the point of view of what Mike has used as the island cortex. So, and I think he is right there. We go down the trap of imprisoning people in fear and of taking away this natural limits to our life. Like, for example, we're going to die. Nothing is perfect. We're going to be recovering all the time from some little ailments. We're going to come back from other ailments. But we are not. We are enabling a medical system that has started to emerge at the beginning of the 20th century and has completely perverted the use, for example, of hospitals. Hospitals used to be a place where you used to go and die, basically, or for people who were in the street, or and it became at the beginning of this century a place where doctors would experiment and learn on all sorts of illnesses. I mean, the whole concept of health has evolved so much in the West anyway. I can't speak for India and China because I don't know the culture enough, and I wouldn't be able to do that. But we have to realize that as industrialization has come in, medicalization has stepped in too, and has completely changed our rapport with our body. And we're talking all the time about anti-tech. We're talking all the time about the damage of industrialization. We have to understand that we need to address also how we look at health, because there is an enslavement. People are enslaved in a medical system that is absolutely an abomination. The introduction of Ivan Illich Limits to Medicine book is, wait a second now, because I've got the book on my desk, and the first phrase of the book is the introduction: the medical establishment has become a major threat to health. And you see, this is true. I mean, if you look at the numbers, if you look at the numbers of people who are ill because of medicine, if you look at the number of people who die because of medicine, if you look at the problems that have happened with, we're not going to use the word vac, but you know what I mean, all sorts of other things that in recent times, but all along, we have to admit that we're facing a machine there, the medical machine, that is as dangerous as the industrial machine. And we cannot, and we need to, it's a transformation. We need to have a total transformation, personal transformation, as how we look at our body and how health is defined, to not be slaves to a narrative that is making us completely dependent on a terrible, terrible system. And I've worked in it, and I've had fantastic experiences. I mean, I have saved lives. I have operated on people. I have brought babies into this world. I have sutured. I have done all sorts of surgeries. Actually, was actually my favorite part. But on the other hand, I've been the witness of things that have absolutely devastated my heart and my mental health. I honestly had to, you see, I grew up, my father was a doctor, and so it's like if you'd grow up in a cult, and then you go into medicine, so you associate all the professors and all that with your kind of family, so you end up you're in a real cult. And so you go along the lines, like when you grow up in tech, you just go along the lines, and suddenly you look at the person in front of you, and you say, but what am I offering you? What is happening there? And then you want to exchange with that person, and you realize that person is enslaved. That person is totally in the narrative of this society that's telling them what it is to be healthy. And they don't know what it is to be healthy, because they can only relate to what the medical establishment is telling them from school. It starts from school. do you see where I'm going?
Yeah, it also sometimes starts at home, because I think something that you'd get over half of the pupils in your class would have some kind of asthmatic difficulties.
Yeah, well, those respiratory problems have also increased because of pollution, and you know, there's also that because of urbanization, and even though they do happen in the countryside, but because of increased carbon and global warming, plants are also producing more pollen, so people are exposed to more. People who are sensitive will be exposed to much more of these things, so their symptoms will increase. But there again, I'm talking a tech language. I'm explaining things with terms that are looking at the human body as a kind of a machine. And I don't like doing that too much, but you kind of come back to this because you always, it's a kind of, it's this logic again, and part of self discovery, the path of enlightenment, the path of understanding where we are, is part of it is getting deconditioned from thinking in a certain way. And if we start to think in terms of semiology, symptoms, these symptoms correspond to this disease is treated by this medicine, you know, then we're back in the machine thing, and the end of this is the transhumanist agenda, because then we are a total machine. Everything will be fixed or replaced, and there is no human anymore. And this is where medicine is going now. I've seen doctors being replaced by tech people, specialized people. A doctor in the 60s or 70s was somebody who would visit the home, who would know the families, who would listen, who would be, you know, at the same time a confidant and a confessor, or wouldn't intervene too much, would use a lot his hands to feel the body and to, you know, and that has completely disappeared. I have some patients that I used to have tell me that sometimes they go to the doctor, they don't even touch them. They just take a kind of algorithm and say, well, you got this, you're going to have this, you're going to have that test, and you're going to take this medication, and you're going to go to the lab and do these tests. And so we're going back into measurements, then we go back into numbers, and we go back into the machine. And somebody has written, what about Druid medicine? Yeah, but the Druids medicine was probably adapted to the time where they were in, and people were not reasoning the way they're reasoning now. So you probably went to see a Druid and you could say, oh, I've got this funny feeling, and I feel a drag in my ear, and you know, it would be a whole constellation of stories that you would tell the Druid, and the Druid would probably go with what you were saying through his perception and his connection with whoever you are, where you live, and your culture and your house and your field and your tree, and he would probably advise you according to all your connections with the world around you. A doctor now doesn't give really much time to your conditions, I mean, to where you lived. It's like what we were saying earlier in many meetings. You know, why would you give an antidepressant to somebody who lives in a world that's totally depressing? Like, what? It's normal to be depressed when you live in the horrors. So instead of telling the person you're depressed, yeah, you're adapting very well. Actually, there you are right. You have that's what it is, and you're experiencing something that's I can validate. If you see what I mean. I'm rambling on there.
I'm very curious about this, how people reacted to illness, or if they even knew about it in this. Well, obviously, they didn't in the same way. But yeah, when you talk about Druid medicine, or any idea of some antiquated medical system, I don't know, we've been taught to completely disregard these things. But yeah, I sort of assume like something like cancer, people might have had these kind of illnesses and not known anything about it and gone, oh, I've got a tummy ache. And then you have a tummy ache for a couple of weeks or 6 months or whatever, and then you drop dead, I guess. And, somebody called that in some culture a curse, or today about health.
Recording is on.
I wonder what how they perceive things. I guess in my mind, I've got no fucking idea about anything is the problem. So I sort of think anything that comes into my head is entirely speculative to the extreme. I don't feel like I really know anything, but like in my guts, I loathe doctors and modern medicine. I've got no scientific understanding of any of it. But yeah, I feel like myself, I'd rather sort of live according to this, like some mythical idea of people who were in some sort of, I don't know, world of spirits, demons, or just shit happens, and at some point you're just going to drop dead, or at some point you're going to have this giant lump appear on your neck that will get bigger and bigger, and you just learn how to get used to it, or you have a limp or whatever, or you get gangrene, and then they saw your fucking leg off with a primitive object of some sort. But then, yeah, I feel like I'm rambling now. I don't know where I'm going with this. Basically, I'm curious about how people coped with illness and coped with death, and are there ways that we could bring those coping mechanisms and perspectives into our modern life, because it does feel like a form of slavery, being forced to interact with the sort of industrial health system, and due to the existence of that system, we're also kind of denied in a way the ability to explore other options for either perceiving our idea of health and dealing with health problems when they come up. So I feel like I can't, I can't explore other possibilities because, I don't know, it's just, it's been so discredited that basically, to me, everything is discredited at this point. And maybe that brings it back to Uncle Ted. Everything in modern civilization is bullshit. And so if the doctors are bullshit, I don't know whether the homeopaths are bullshit or not, or whatever, those hand-waving chaps and touching people, bullshit, I don't know. So I don't know if I've said anything remotely coherent there.
Well, at least it's good to know that you don't know. And that's where I am a bit, to admit that you don't know, and there you can build on that. Now there is a way of knowing a bit about medicine, and I was lucky enough because I had a classical education and I learned Latin and Greek, and I used to translate things like when I was in school. So there was some writers who described medicine, but not medicine, but diseases, and how people were talking about them in the Greek time, in the Latin time, and even in the Middle Ages. And there's lots of writers who have written about and who have looked in archives about how people perceived their illness. And there is a very beautiful poetic language and a lot of words that were used in different cultures of Europe anyway to describe different ailments. Even the ones that the pre-doctors used to use very colorful sort of things to explain what people had, and it would coming from spirits to vapors and all sorts of things. There is an immense if you want to go through libraries, and you can find a lot on the history of medicine, and it's very edifying, and it's very interesting to see that it's only in recent time that, I repeat, that disease has been invented. There was a much less systemic approach to well-being and not well-being before. It was not so classified. It was not so. Now, I don't want to say, like, you know, you're not going to save a life because, you know, it's a very, we're on a slippery terrain there where you can say, well, we reject everything, and then we'll, you know, we let people die around you because we've got the technology to do this and that, intervene, and antibiotics and things like that. Well, one of the oldest medicine, the two oldest medicines that were used mostly in villages and that people always had at hand was painkillers and things to stop bleeding and to stop wounds due to hunting or war. So there was an immense knowledge of herbs and various tree barks and stuff like that for the broken bones and the wounds. In books, I have some very interesting books on that. That's for sure. There was always immediate responses to symptoms. But that was not put in a logical frame of this disease needs to have this and this and that. It was just, you're in pain, here, take that, you know. So you can also, you remember, I don't know if you remember, but I posted something on Reddit a few weeks ago about sleep, you know, because, for example, I think, I don't know if you remember, but people think that we've always slept the whole night, like, and that we go to bed and, you know, at 10 o'clock and wake up at 8 o'clock. All that is bullshit. It's just only recent, since electricity, since we had lights in the evening, since we started work with regular hours, people for hundreds of years, and that goes back to the antiquity, to 2 or 3,000 years, used to sleep in several, usually 2 phases: first sleep, second sleep, with an awakening time in the middle of the night that is described in various classical writers. And we have pathologized now people who don't sleep the whole night, telling them, oh, you've got a sleeping disorder. No, you don't have a sleeping disorder. You're not going to be in good form to perform your slave work the following day. So you need to take a sleeping tablet or an antidepressant because you're not normal, like you're dysfunctional. You see, so the example of sleep can be extended to an awful lot of other ailments. Let's talk things that are very basic and dirty. Let's take constipation, for example. Like, okay, so you know, you ask, you've got, I used to have a load of people who come to see me because they had that problem. Those people were spending most of their day sitting down. Okay, so they were looking for all sorts of remedies to be able to go to the loo. They were eating shite. They were not moving. So doctors were prescribing this and this, and this was more or less working. The chronic constipation would lead to colon problems, then eventually cancer. So you're talking about a lifestyle problem that would, you know, bring on a disease and then a treatment and then money and then maybe at the end of the day a totally fabricated pathology that would be just more simple if people were not living that sort of life. So sleep, digestion, we can go to sex, we can go to everything. We've talked about overshoot, we've talked about overpopulation. Why do people have too many children? Why? Because they've got more they've got contraception, of course, but that's not the cause of overshoot. It's because the conditions of life, they've got surplus, they're not so they're more sedentary, they've got more, you know, it's not people have not decided suddenly we're going to have a family of 4 or 5. You know, there's a whole history of people who have gradually who had actually sometimes 10 children and 5 or 6 would die because there was epidemics or there was not enough food or things like that. We can't, everything we talk about in terms of health is related to how we live. We can't dissociate, and that's why the medical world is dangerous, because it's perpetuating a situation and giving remedies just to calm people so that they can continue to work in the plantation. What? I'm reading the comments. Yeah. Sorry, I've been rambling a lot about this because I had so much things to say, but I don't know if I can explain myself very well. I'd like to hear other people on this.
Sophie, I had a question about the pharmaceutical role. I mean, don't you think they recognized that profits came from something that they could produce in an industrial capacity, and that might be a jab or a pill or some therapy, and that motivated the entire industry in the early 20th century to move towards defining health and treating health only in those places where, you know, a single pill could be useful, you know, and maybe even eventually not even useful. Why cure somebody when you can hook them for the rest of their life?
Absolutely, but it's linked to profit. I mean, they jumped on the wagon. The health industry is very profitable. We're afraid of dying. We're afraid of being sick, and so where do you go? It's just and this quick fix. Absolutely, absolutely. But you see, it's like medicine has developed and the pharmaceutical has developed so much that it's become extremely dangerous, as well as traffic has developed so much. So it's become extremely dangerous to be a human or a dog. It's the quantity, it's the enormous. I don't have figure. I'm a very bad person to remember figures, and I absolutely know, but I can tell you from because I'm the age I am that when I started working in medicine, people would go out of the doctor with very few prescriptions. There was very, very few things there. Sometimes there was a necessity for antibiotic, and sometimes there was something for pain and inflammation and stuff like that. Within 20 years, you could multiply by 5, 10 what people carry when they come out of a surgery. So this is not, I mean, you know, it's so profitable. It is just so profitable. I think I'm pushing doors that are already open there. Really, what I'm saying is everybody knows that, you know, everybody knows that. It's just, yeah, it's, I think there has been no progress in medicine, really, in the last 50 years, but there's been an enormous development of drugs. So, you know, that in parallel, like that is absolutely, so people tend to think, oh, because we've discovered a new drug for this and that, we've made progress. No, we have not. Most of the lot of the medications that are made are there to treat problems that have been brought on by either civilization or other treatments or other drugs. Because a lot of people I know come out of hospital with one medication and they have to take 2 or 3 medications to counteract the effects of the drug that they're taking. Now, a long time ago, people used to treat themselves with herbs because there was no way of getting the active ingredients into tablets. So the plant, if you analyze a plant contains the active ingredient, but also an awful lot of other ingredients that have the property of not making side effects disappear, but more or less balancing the effect of the active ingredient. So patients were given the whole plant. Now, a lot of drugs that are coming from plants are they extract the active ingredient, they isolate it, for example, aspirin or Digitalis or whatever active ingredient. So you'd have to take a tablet, but the tablet can cause side effects because you don't have the balancing effect of the whole plant that had been experienced over thousands of years. This is just an example. So what did you mean, Zoo, by pharmaceutical there? When you were intervention, were you more talking about vaccines or were you more talking about drugs?
I guess both. I mean, I just wonder whether early on, there was a recognition that some medical practices were profitable and others weren't. And so that incentivized almost narrowing of focus of health to things that could be administered in a, first industrial produced and then administered sort of on a continuous basis to deal with preferably symptoms and not causes. I mean, I feel like it was the industrialization of the medical system and maybe the regulatory capture that almost forced it on society that has led to where we are.
Yeah. Well, you see, if the health system creates products and targeted where there are going to be a demand that's going to be unlimited, and where is demurable and homeopathic and all that. I'm not condemning anybody. I'm saying in the middle of all that, there's fantastic people, but it's the whole attitude. We're going back to the denial of death.
That's the key thing, isn't it? The denial of death. It's the central fuck up of all fuck ups, or unwillingness to. And it's a tricky one to deal with. I mean, one of the meditation things that I did way back was meditating on the sort of image of my rotting corpse, and that of other people as well on the odd occasion, just for shits and giggles. But trying to kind of sort of accept death, I think, would be one of the most helpful sort of self-development things any human beings could do. In just not in the sense of like wanting to die, but just being open to the idea, or not open to the idea, just accepting the fact that we're all this sort of like whatever lumps of meat, we're all going to rot and decay and die, and that's not really that much of a big deal. And the more accepting we are of that, the better. And I mean, I spent some time among Tibetan people, and they seem to be quite chilled out about the fact that you're going to die, and they accept it with a much more kind of stoical, I guess, approach, or Buddhist approach, I suppose, more accurately. But if we just accept the fact, I'm gonna fucking die at some point. It might happen tomorrow. It might happen in 20 years. It's not the end of the world. I think a lot of problems would be averted, because I mean, there's that book, Ernest Becker, The Denial of Death, which I'm sure people are familiar with, and I've got it, and I've read the sort of back cover, and I've heard a few people talk about it, and never bothered to read it because I figured, well, I've probably got the gist of it anyway, which is that all the technology and the big buildings that we build, and this bank accounts full of money, and all the stuff we hoard and acquire, and even just our desire sort of get ahead in society and be part of the hierarchy and move up that hierarchy and so on. It's all about fear of death. And if we could kind of come to an accommodation with our inevitable demise as individuals, maybe we'd have been less likely to have destroyed, the ecosystem.
Yeah, but you see, people had a different relationship with death at the time when we were talking about when diseases were looked, or well, not called diseases, but it was more illness. I think that it's all that is recent. The attitude to death is a recent thing, so it's not forgotten. It's just that it's been replaced by the denial of death, which goes with our civilization. I have all of you know about Hippocrates, the Greek founder of medicine, you could say, because we still have to give an oath when we start medicine. That's the Hippocrates oath. And I have a quote of him that's quite interesting to show you how recent diseases are. He says, you can discover no weight, no form, no calculation to which to refer your judgment of health and sickness. In the medical arts, there exists no certainty except in the physician's senses. So we're talking again about this aspect of our brain that needs to measure and label, and this combined with the denial of death brings us to this monster that I have left the medical world. And I would like to say that this is an extremely powerful tool for the agenda of the managed extinction, because most of the population is under the impression that the doctors and the scientific world carry the truth. And that's what happened during the COVID. People completely went berserk because they were listening to Dr. this and Professor this, and so we're that's where we are. That's where we are. So how do we reclaim our health? What do we do? Guys, Extinctionati, SOS.
Hi. I read an article in the New York Times. I don't know, this is years ago, maybe 8-10 years ago. And they were talking about people who have coughs. And they said that you don't need cough medicine. All you need to do is just drink a lot of fluids and it'll loosen up the phlegm. And it's like you're wasting your money on cough medicine. So.
Oh, that's one of my major rants about the medical thing. At the time, I had a cough that was so bad it gave me a hernia, and I was like in fits. And then the GP, after like 3 different contacts with a GP, who'd all said, "Oh, go and buy some cough medicine." The third GP or whatever, fourth GP that I saw said, "Oh, don't bother with cough medicine. It doesn't work. Just sip some water." And again, I feel like a twit for not having thought just to like try drinking more water or something like this, because I was having these like coughing fits in the middle of the night that made my eyes pop out. But yeah, when the doctors acknowledge the fact, I don't know, they're so inconsistent. Yeah, it drives me nuts. Yeah, cough medicine doesn't work.
I mean, you don't really need it. You just need to drink a lot of fluids and it'll loosen up all the stuff in your throat.
I think I had a dry cough at the time, actually, but I think that was the same thing. But the one doctor said it doesn't work, and I thought, I wonder, it makes you doubt. I just thought, I wonder if all the other doctors know that it doesn't work, and whether the chemist knows that it doesn't work, and so on. Whether the pharmacist, do they know it doesn't work? Does everyone know it doesn't work, really?
It works for their bank account anyway.
Sophie, I wanted to comment on what you were talking about, how in the last decades medicine has become almost like a lot of us are programmers, so I liken it to like if this then, or a select statement, case this then. It's like treating the body as very mechanistic. And it also alarms me that I read articles where they're saying that AI is going to take over the roles of doctors, where it will just have an algorithm and it'll know how to treat you. And to me, it's very abhorrent. I would rather have the family physicians of yesterday, as you described, where they're almost, they know you, they know your lifestyle, they know your psyche. It's like they know you on a whole basis rather than just seeing one part of your body. But that's probably the trend that's happening right now, is that artificial intelligence will also be used to diagnose us. Will be like cars. This part, something's wrong with this, so it's just do this if this is the one that's not working. It's kind of horrifying and makes me not want to go to the doctor, like Bob.
You are absolutely right. Actually, these machines already exist. Some of them have been tested about 5-6 years ago in Saudi Arabia. You just literally go in, put your hand on something for a drop of blood, and something takes your blood pressure, and some other thing measures your temperature, and some other things, and you come out with a printout, and that is starting to happen. Yeah, it's not science fiction. It's there, and actually, when I used to go to medical meetings, it evolved more and more into following algorithms that were very close to a program, to an AI thing. You got this patient at this age, this gender, this weight, this parameters. So you had an arrow, you go to there, and then from no, yes, no, and yes, no, and you've got an algorithm for everybody. So you go into the doctor, you're not anymore the person. You fit into an algorithm, and you're going to get at the end of the algorithm a diagnosis and a treatment. So it's turning more and more to be like this.
There's people, though, you'll hear sort of people talking about, oh yeah, when they've got these computer programs now that can diagnose stuff better than any doctor, and they sort of just take it for granted that this will be a really cool development.
Yeah, but it's the idea of diagnosis that I'm kind of
about the whole civilization project, don't you, really?
Well, for me, when I'm saying this, it's like I was in a church, and I've been thrown out. Like if I say things like that in my family or in front of other ex-colleagues or even patients, I'm considered like a traitor. But I don't care. That's not my problem, because I know what I'm clear in my mind. I see exactly how things are now. But you're a prisoner of this labeling diagnosis, because it has been it's been used, it's been to a certain extent efficient, and there's proof that some great doctors have done great achievements and saved people by using this method. So it's like tech, what Going South was saying earlier. We email and commercial flights. There is in medicine, the use of diagnosis cannot be totally thrown out the window, but there is a generalization that is evil and dangerous and leading us to what we've been talking about.
Can you have the one, can you have the one without the other, though? So don't you have to have the whole machinery of industrial civilization in order to have the diagnosis and the pills? And by having that, it necessarily obliterates the possibility of that sort of. I mean, how would you have like a tier of society, or I'm just thinking about my own sort of attitude of especially sort of thinking about getting slowly older, and at some point that things start to go wrong or whatever, and people then seem to get sucked into this relationship with this horrific machine, where as people in the West get older, they start being given these drugs that they have to take regularly, and suddenly it's not like you go to the doctor and get a pill to make something better, but you're suddenly taking these pills because you've got diabetes. You take these diabetes pills, and then you have to take something called statins, and then you have to take this and this and whatever, and this one will help your heart, and this one will help your arthritis, and this one, and you're put on this. I mean, I'm not, because I just refuse to engage with it, but I know lots of people, as they get older, you find them taking more and more medicine, and like my issue of thinking, well, maybe I would just completely just sort of swear myself off modern medicine altogether, and someone wise suggested that maybe it's better to pick the bits that you want and leave the rest, but not refuse engagement altogether. But to me, I'm sort of tempted by the idea that maybe you have to sort of hold it at bay altogether. Otherwise, it's like when you have that box of chocolates, and you're tempted, you know, and you think, oh, I'll just have the one coffee flavored one, and that's the end of that. And then an hour later, there's no more chocolates, and you feel slightly queasy. And you know, how easy is it to pick or choose? And I wonder whether there might develop tiers of society who just really stop using medicine altogether. I mean, in the UK, the government's working on that being the case, just by making the whole health service more and more difficult to access. But yeah, I wonder if there's whether anybody thinks there's any argument to be made for actually going, no, fuck you, modern medicine, I'll take my chances without. Or should we, you know, just take what we want from it and be judicious?
Well, it's a given that an enormous proportion now of pathologies are caused by our civilization. So we can't deny that. I mean, it's the main job of the doctors at the moment is to treat the consequences of the industrial world we live in, and the lifestyle, the corrupt lifestyle we live in, and everything. So if you are immersed in that, you can hardly escape some of those diseases, whether it's caused by food or pollution or the horrendous working conditions or you know. So and I would say something. You say as you get older, you get more sick. That was not true in the past. That is not necessarily, you know, as you get older, your joints getting more painful, you're maybe not as fit, but in a culture that adjusts activity to age, you don't have the same amount of sick old people that you have in our modern world. You know, we can't separate ourselves from our environment, and we can't separate our illnesses from where we live. So yes, you're going to have to make compromises with and use the best that you can with a bit of an educated process and decision process. Use what you can out of this Western medicine, but leave as much as you can too. It's a difficult game now. It's the same with technology. It's the same where, you know, how much do we participate? How much do we use of transport and fuel? And, you know, it's all a very, very tricky thing. We're in a very, very difficult situation.
Yeah, diet and exercise are very good, but like what you said, Sophie, about the civilization, there's a lot of chocolate around, and there's a lot of cookies and a lot of sugary stuff, and it's not healthy for you.
I think to go off of this, Derek made a powerful statement, because if you don't know, he mentioned several times he has Crohn's disease and he had open heart surgery, and he recognizes that modern medicine, you know, saved his life several times, but he also understands that the living planet is more important. And you know, that's something that gets to me, that all these this, like, on a personal level, you know, we have to make a decision whether we want to use modern medicine, but there's something looming beyond that, right? Which is the living planet. And
yeah, I mean, he's one of the very few people who talks intelligently about anything really, but about this subject. I've heard him speaking about that he's got ongoing illnesses and has had serious conditions, and that he recognizes that modern medicine's helped him, but at the same time he manages to integrate the idea that if we're to do anything about well, we're not going to now, are we? But if anybody was going to do anything about the state of the planet, then you're going to have to let go of all of that, and, you know, just accept. Again, it comes back to just accepting death and suffering and whatever, and also you know, the the sort of what I suspect is just a massive propaganda campaign against non-modern or non-industrial civilization related lifestyles has been pretty relentless in convincing us that everything was terrible before 2,200 years ago. Everything was terrible. Everybody died at 40 or 30 years old, and everybody was writhing around in shit, feeling ill, and all the time, blah blah blah. And you know, every sort of historical age has, yeah. I think is that right to say it's like basically propagandized against, and you know, those people living in mud huts, it's terrible. They have terrible life. And then there was that. What was there? There was a show with a British guy called Bruce Parry, and he went and lived with all these various jungle dwelling, mud hut dwelling type of people. And at that time, I think, which wasn't that long ago, but it made me think, oh, these, you know, these different lifestyles are possible, even though I'm stuck in an urban setting. And for me personally, it doesn't necessarily appeal. But yeah, those people must be, they're okay, right? I mean, you know, the various life forms on this planet are probably okay for a reasonable amount of the time. I don't get the impression that, you know, anybody living with less than modern technology is in a state of perpetual angst because of that. But we in civilization seem to be, or everybody I interact with anyway.
Well, too much logic and too much analyzing and too much diagnosing and too much labeling is a disease in itself, I think. So we need to get back a little bit to a bit more common sense, and because otherwise we're falling victim of this general psychosis there. That's very interesting times, and you know, you have to gather up an awful lot of your courage and common sense, and yeah, I think, and not follow the general. And I see this new thing that's coming there, this monkey whatever pox there, I think that they're trying to put to just slip a little bit in the news. It's triggering again this reaction in the public that was there when the COVID came. You know, quick, let's turn to the specialists, let's turn to the sorcerers, let's turn to the professors, and they're going to tell us what to do. And so the subject of health, fear of losing health is enormous, and it didn't exist a long time ago. And of course, nobody likes to be sick. Nobody likes having pain. Nobody likes to die. Nobody likes to have an amputation. But the degree where it's become actually, for certain people, they talk about a right to health. I don't know if you've heard that expression. Like it's nearly like associated to human rights. We see what has happened when we try to send Western medicine to countries that in Africa or South America. We've seen the catastrophes that have happened. And would somebody have something to say about this?
Well, my brother and his family live, you know, from a big city in Asia. And I am just going to echo what you said about us not being able to take ourselves away from the environment. It's such a polluted city that my sister-in-law has asthma. The kids always have recurring respiratory problems. And I think in a way, a lot of people are trapped because they have no means to move to the countryside or buy land somewhere less polluted. So we in the Western world, we are really in a way privileged because we can move if we have the resources to a place where it's not so polluted. But I just see that, yeah, I'm just kind of echoing that we cannot take ourselves from our environment. And at the same time, that a lot of people are trapped and have to live with unbearable conditions. And the funny thing is that when the pandemic was declared, at first they were very afraid, but after a while, the necessity of making a living just it's as if there was no pandemic anymore. They were just sitting next to each other side by side in the public transport. So so I don't know. I'm kind of just rambling too.
It all comes back to the sort of spiritual, I suppose, aspect, and from the discussion about Uncle Ted at the beginning, where it was like, okay, well, no one seems to think that, you know, sending people bombs is a good idea, and, you know, that his approach to things was, you know, maybe not something that I don't know, doesn't seem all that contemporarily relevant, as in we've got past the point of anything happening, we can't do anything about the scenario that we're in, and so it's really about then back to that mental/spiritual preparation, or developing some sort of resilience in the face of all this, then, isn't it? Really, everything sort of cycles around back to that one thing. How do we individually make ourselves, or those of us who aren't already, make ourselves, you know, more resilient, I suppose, to being able to cope with the material circumstances and the mental circumstances. But it's all mental, isn't it, at the end of the day? But the things that are likely to arise maybe in the nearer future than a lot